Mass Boston Club, so we're on it. So this semester we're doing 2 sessions a week. They're running in parallel, they're not different things. So you only have to show up to one, you can show up to both if you want. I'm not gonna stop you. But the intention of it is that if you can't go to one, you can go to the other, and you can still be involved in a good way. So the first session is gonna be 2 to 3 QB Hall, room 2100. It's literally just up the stairs in the university. The second one, I don't know what that one is, I'm gonna figure it out. That's where I'm gonna be, Thursdays 4 to 5. And then my friend Dennis is doing this session right. So what it's gonna look like schedule-wise for us is we're doing hot wing style interviews with professors. What that looks like is, if you're not familiar with a hot wings interview, is you get some spicy food. In this case, we're doing professors like spicy food, and then we're interviewing them. So it should be pretty entertaining thing to look at. I hope everyone can enjoy it. The only caveat and nuance to this is that the Wednesday session interview.
So how many professors?
I think the room's gonna be 35. That one, then it should be on this page by the time of by that Wednesday at least. It should be on this website page right here, which will be in the description of this video. And the week after that, and obviously just make it clear, the Thursday session is going to be just where it is with the professor there. So you should get to know professor no matter where you go. The week after that is a guest speaker session. So what that looks like is either university professors or club members or in industry people exposing your horizon to something. That's the goal of it. It's really just any topic. Think TED Talks, but for computer science explicitly. Then the week after that, this is one of my favorite things, is resume roast. Reason being, so the way this works is you give us your resume, you get to decide how badly you want us to roast your resume. So we have everything from like be kind, or I think spiciness level is like sweet or something like that, to Carolina Reaper. So this can range from anything from, you want some light feedback to you want to be personally insulted. I have a good time with it, and I think everyone usually gets a lot out of it. So I would highly encourage you, especially as you're applying to resumes this semester, to go in for one of these events. It's helped a lot of people out, mainly because career services can't tell you if your resume is a good computer science resume, but we can. So the week after that, we're doing an intro to a competition we're doing this semester. So what this should look like, or what it's going to look like, is we're gonna have a theme, and within that theme, we don't care what kind of technologies you're experienced with. We just want you to show up and be involved. So if you work with websites, like come on, like we'd love to have you work with websites. If you do app development, if you do game development, if you do cybersecurity, if you do data stuff, any and every project is welcome here. There's going to be a prize at the end of it. By then, it should be a lot more clear what the theme is and what the prize is going to be. So if you're curious about it, just stay posted on the website here. It should be listed probably somewhere over here. And then the week after that, we're doing team lead code. So what that's going to look like is 2 more teams in every single session are going to just compete for a prize over a few lead code problems. So pretty straightforward. Week after that is spring break. No club sessions. Please don't come. I'm not going to be here. Week of March 20th is going to be another thing of guest speaker sessions. So same idea. And then the week after that, we got resume roasts. After that, we have 2 weeks of workshops. So what that's going to look like is the session runners are going to show you some type of technology related thing. For me, I'm going to be doing AWS and probably another thing from workshops we did last semester. I'm just going to carry forward that content because not a lot of people showed up for those. So hopefully that content can be used. The week after that is competition and review of the competition. So that will come with the prize, and we're just going to go through all the submissions and have a good time. Week after that, we're just planning for the club. What that looks like is just us sitting in a room and talking about how this semester went and how we want the next one to go. So if you're interested in really getting involved in the club, go to this one. Absolutely. We love anybody's input. So that is pretty much it. I hope you have a wonderful semester. Thank you. All right. Is there any questions I can answer about anything the blonde man said in that video? Anything? No? Awesome. All right.
Maybe I can say that everyone here should join the computer science club. I mean, it's a great initiative. I'm really happy that it was like paused for a few years, but then John took it over and they're doing amazing events. So I really suggest that to make friends, to do these cool activities like the resume roast and stuff. So it's really for all kind of level of students, right? Also graduate students, everybody should be welcome and join that club. So
Please come, and especially if you want to get involved and have like a nice bullet point in your resume saying you're responsible for XYZ club event, there's space for you there to like do your own thing. If you have your own kind of brainstorm going on, I'm more than happy to hear it and give you the opportunity to carry that out. So without further ado, let's get started with the interview. So like the blonde man said, this is just going to be me asking Daniel Haehn. Can you turn that off? Awesome. It's going to be me asking Daniel Haehn a bunch of questions about himself as I feed him spicy food and try to make him die. So fingers crossed it goes well. This is the first time doing this, so hopefully we got the spice right.
all right, let's bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm saying that now. It's a miracle already.
All right. Let me actually get. There we go. Awesome. So tell me a bit about yourself. Where are you from, Professor Haehn? Or can I call you Daniel for this?
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel. Where are you from?
I tell also the students in my group that you can tell me call me Daniel. I'm from Germany originally. So I came to Boston 2008 and as a student still. And then I worked for a few years. I did my PhD here, and then I joined UMass Boston in 2019.
In 2019?
Yeah.
How did you end up at UMass Boston? Also, start digging into the first one. This is light, so don't even. Like, it's easy.
Are there bones in there?
Yeah, there are bones in this. So how did you end up at UMass Boston? What's the story there?
It's light. I only feel
Yeah.
a little bit.
Actually, I might have this backwards, but so we might go on 3-1, but whatever. So we'll be
Okay,
fine.
that's maybe a 3. Okay, that's most.
Maybe it's a 3. I'm hoping it's a. I don't know. It's not that bad. So, what's the story? Like, why did you go to UMass Boston? Right?
Okay.
If you know there was a choice involved.
So yeah, that's so much aspects to that. But like I really like UMass Boston because it's a public university. That was maybe one of the main drivers to work at a public university, because in Germany, public education is so big, right? So I was lucky that I did not have any student debt because of public university system. And at UMass Boston, I know it's very expensive already, but it's much cheaper than if you would go to a private institution, right? So that's, I think education should be very accessible.
Yeah.
And public universities have a special role for that, to make that happen, more than like private institutions. And that's why I like UMass Boston from the get-go. Now, after my PhD, I wanted to become a faculty member, and
Right.
I wanted to stick in the Boston area. So I interviewed a bunch of different places, and UMass Boston was for me the best fit.
So it was really about that public aspect.
The public aspect, and then also about, so I definitely feel the heat already. Like it's like
Yeah. So I can feel it too. It's like coming in with
so what I also like about UMass Boston is the people, you know. So I was very everybody was so friendly when I first came here. And actually, like, no, like let's say when I first came here for the interview, I came in and the semester must have just started or something. I go into this bathroom and somebody's throwing up in the toilet. So I'm like, all right, that's my kind of place. So that was a good sign in the right direction. But like otherwise, yeah, I really like the people, and I like public education, and I like the location of the campus with the ocean being so close. That's all very important.
It's the only proper campus in Boston. So that part's nice.
Some people even told me that on the East Coast it's so unique to have a campus right at the waterfront, you know. So,
yeah. There's only a few others. Like I know there's one in Rhode Island, it's Roger Williams. They're like right on a river. Is the closest. That's like the closest I think I can think of.
Yeah.
So let's go on to number 2. I think it's it's gonna be a mix. So you want the big one or the small one? I'll go. You take the pick.
So I finished them all. Yeah.
Yeah, finish them all. Absolutely.
I'm hungry.
I'll give you the big one then.
All right.
Okay. So based on your Rate My Professors reviews, you're actually very well liked. You're one of the best like
professors at UMass Boston for computer science, and the reviews, I'm going to generalize it, but they come off as very, you're engaged with your students on another level. What kind of drives that, and like why? Like, speak to it.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I also check the reviews. And those are important actually for multiple things. Like for instance, I'm pre-tenure, so I'm on the tenure track, and I get evaluated by faculty members in the computer science department, but also by the college, by the dean of the college, by the provost of the university. Wow, that's definitely spicier.
Really?
Yeah, you don't feel it?
Maybe because I did this the other night. This is okay. Oh, okay. I only get like this is the light.
So yeah, I love computers. You know, that's just the thing. I really love computers, and I think some of the computer science education is very theoretical. So I do it very hands-on, very applied, and I think that's only beneficial because people can do hands-on skills, which they need for jobs and for after graduation.
So you prefer really the practical element of it over
Definitely.
the abstract. So where would you say that line should be drawn for an undergraduate and then going into a postgrad for something like that? Like, what's the distinction between the computer scientist and what I think you're describing as more of a software engineer role? Where should that line be?
I wouldn't say that. I think computer science has so many different levels.
Okay.
And the ability to code will help with all levels, on all levels, from microcontrollers where you solder your own board over creating like enterprise frameworks with J2EE, Java stuff, right?
Right.
There's a huge range in between. I'm a big fan of Python and JavaScript because the developer turnaround is so fast. So if you can code and do proper software engineering, it will help also designing algorithms, working with algorithms, doing like finance stuff as well. And stuff like, so the foundation for me, and not everybody agrees with that, but for me, a proper computer scientist should be able to code and love coding. That's what I think.
So that's the definition of computer science, is absolutely just being in love with coding.
Yeah, with coding, yeah.
So on that note, how do you think you best prepare somebody from like an intro? Like if you were designing a college course through and through, when I the whole curriculum and no accreditation at the side, how would you go about structuring it? Because right now, obviously at UMass Boston, you get 110, 210, 240 on the side. Like you guys are familiar with it. So, but how would you go about it? Like, what are the stepping stones that you think are important to becoming like a well-rounded engineer?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, when it comes to the computer science curriculum, it starts with these 100 level courses, then 200, 300 level, and 200, 300 level courses can be really tough, right? It's also 100 can be really tough. It's intimidating. You don't know what you're doing, and some things are more theoretical than applied, so it can be very confusing.
Right.
So that's why I tell students, do not give up during that time. I even remember during my undergraduate. So actually, I almost failed high school, right, in Germany.
Really?
So I almost failed high school with the least possible grade in mathematics. So I always loved computers. I started coding when I was 12 or 13. And then computer science, I always had an A. But in mathematics, I had like the worst grade possible. So in Germany, we have this point system from 15 points the best, 0 points you fail high school. I had 1 point in mathematics. So I graduated mathematics in the bottom, the high school in the bottom 10%. And that was mainly because of math. I just couldn't get it.
Right.
So, but I was good at coding. So there's like this disconnect from applied doing algorithms versus doing it with formulas. And then I decided to study medical computer science, where I thought, okay, it's medical, so less mathematics.
Right.
But it was the opposite. It was more mathematics. They added like this medical physics, electrical engineering stuff to it. It was so much mathematics. So it was really tough for me. And I sat down every Sunday to do mathematics to catch up. So that's what
Is that in college or that in high school?
And that was in college.
In college. So you would just go through your gaps in your knowledge and get everything off.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to. And then I passed mathematics with an A. And I was so happy. But I had this great professor who allowed me to code during the exam. So essentially, I prepared worksheets where I can plug in the equations, and it showed me all the steps.
Right.
And that was so fantastic. So then I got it much better. And we use a software called Maple.
Maple.
It's like MATLAB, but cheaper.
Okay.
And
What year was that? To give us some like frame of reference
so I
for it.
graduated in 2010 with a master's, and this in Germany was like bachelor master combined, so 5-year program. So I started 2004, so it must have been 2006 or so. The first time I failed math, and I was like, I'm gonna drop out of this. You know, I can't finish it.
Right.
Mathematics was counting as a quarter of the bachelor's degree, and I just couldn't get it. Failed multiple times. If you fail, and there are these little exams. So that's number 3, or
That's number 3, yeah. All right, cheers.
there are these little exams which are not as heavy as the big exams. Cheers. And I failed them. You can fail as many as you want
Right.
of those, but the big exam you could only fail twice, like similar to
Okay.
here, right? If you fail course twice, there's a problem. So the big exam I only failed 1 time, and then the second time I passed. But yeah, that was tough, and I wanted to give up the computer science degree. Also, then later in graduate school, doing the PhD, wanted to give up. So I tell students, do not give up during these hard courses, especially if you don't know if this is relevant to you, what you want to do with computers, you know.
Right. That's, well, I mean, this is a side on that whole thing. But the difference in education system between Germany and the US, how was that transition? Because I know they're 2 incredibly different systems.
Yeah, it's pretty different. I enjoy courses in the United States better. In Germany, we had this guy, professor, who went like this. So like, every second one of you does not belong here, and it's my job to filter you out. Stuff like this, you know. So it was really tough, and especially during the bachelor's, I passed. Like I had also medicine, I passed it with a D. That was the only way of advancing. So there was a limitation with how many Ds you could get, and so on. So I was not a very good student until then doing the masters. So, and with the mathematics catching up, then then it was better for me, you know, but like for a while it was not so good.
Okay. Let's follow up the next question. Could you explain some information about medical imagery and computer science techniques? Like, what's the nitty gritty of it, if you can describe it briefly?
Yeah, that's a good point. And one of the takeaway messages of my CS 666 course, which is mainly for graduate students, but undergraduates can take it too, is biomedical signal image processing. One of the main takeaways is that all the signals in the computer come down to numbers. So we have arrays of numbers and process them. And that's essentially the takeaway. If you have an MRI scan, brain scan, a CAT scan, or like ECG data where they measure your heart activity, it's all coming down to numbers after all. So to break it down, it's numbers, analog signals converted to digital signals, numbers in the computer, you process arrays.
So it's like a lot of, it's like you said, it's math heavy, obviously. Is that linear algebra? What topic does that fall under?
I would even say once you move it to arrays, you process it in of course discrete math applies to it.
Okay.
But yeah, for rendering it would be linear algebra, but otherwise it's more looking really at just numbers without even touching any formula or aspect of mathematics. So I don't even think you need to be good at mathematics to be good at computer science. That's my theory. You know?
Okay. So what gave you the kind of confidence to be a developer? Because it sounds like you had a moment where you just weren't all that sure about. You seem to have a little, I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis, but a mid-college crisis, and wanted to drop it. So what?
It was just super hard. It was like it was too hard.
But what would you say gave you the confidence to keep going with it? Was it just, so
I didn't know what else to do.
You didn't know what else to do?
Yeah, I didn't know what else.
You already tried.
Fail necessarily. Nobody likes to fail necessarily, right? So I just kept going. But there were moments where like, after this, I'm out for sure.
What would you, if you had gone through on those impulses, where do you think you'd be? Like, what's like the backup job? You can't.
I actually also wanted to quit high school. I'm so glad I didn't do that.
Right.
It was really, really, really tough. Yeah, during high school, I did coding on the side. So there were like agencies, they said, okay, join us as a PhD developer and get like, you have full-time job, so it was tempting. I made $30 an hour, pretty good deal. So I'm so glad I didn't do it. So yeah, I always say, don't be a fool, stay in school.
Stay in school?
Yeah.
All right, and this should be the start of the second set of them. So it should be like the 4th spiciest.
Actually, the first one kicked in.
The first one kicked a lot.
Yeah, maybe it was number 3. Oh, but I feel I taste like I think it's probably habanero, right? I think
I should have written down the names because they came in these little bottles. I can do that for tomorrow. But
it's pretty tasty. So,
no, this one's pretty good.
so how did you make it? You soak them in the.
So what we did is we bought these little packs of like hot sauce challenges, right? I thought I was gonna make do with just one, but me and Dennis were sitting down like a few nights ago and we're like, okay, how is this gonna be for the press? Because I want to feed you something I'm not gonna eat myself. That's just rude. That's being a bad, not a bad interviewer. So we sit down, we have them, and I'm like, we need more sauce on these because it didn't kick, and I thought we were gonna run out because I'm running 2 interviews of this week. The others with Stephen Chang. He's
Great
a new
guy,
professor from
great guy.
Northeastern. Have you met him?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I met him during the interview process.
Really?
Great guy. He's a theoretical computer scientist.
Yeah.
And yeah, but still, like, great guy.
We had him as a guest speaker last semester,
Uh-huh.
and he gave a really interesting talk about a language to make other languages.
Oh, what is it, Racket or something?
Yeah, that
Oh,
sounds like what it is. I thought it was, but what's your take on Racket?
Oh, I've never used it.
You've never used it?
I would never touch that stuff. You know, that's my take on that. It's really advanced. Also, Professor Tiago, right? He's like really advanced with this kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, well, I feel the heat.
Okay. So you went from Germany to the US and you actually went to Harvard.
Yes,
Right?
I did. Yes.
So what was that experience like? What you
Mm.
say? And if you can elaborate on, transition between like your school before Harvard and where you went after Harvard.
Yeah, for me, so there's not so much difference between these schools, I would say, from my experience. The only difference is the resources, like the massive amounts of money people have. And that maybe if you come to a conclusion at Harvard, people following more this linear track, right? They like they're good in high school, they're good in college, they're good in graduate school, right? So I felt already like a little bit different because I almost failed high school. So it was I didn't know anybody else who almost failed high school when I was there. I also had kids already at this point, so I didn't like from my starting cohort. Nobody had children, So I was like the only one who had kids. I was maybe a little bit older than the other students too, and yeah, much cooler. I was. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it was. There were great people there too, but it was really like linear pathways, kind of. So yeah, less problems in life, I would say, and that's what I like also at UMass Boston. Most students I talk to have like overcome some challenge of some sort, So this makes people very interesting. It builds character, and everybody can just, I mean, maybe study the books, and like be a good student like this.
Right.
But there's so much more in life than that. There's like if you solve life problems, that's how you advance, really, how you grow, right?
So-
and I see that more here than at Harvard.
So you thought people at Harvard were fucking boring, to put it bluntly.
Some of them were boring, but on the other hand, like there are also some like very interesting people, like very high achievers, right? Some are not very nice. Some are but I also met a lot of nice people, definitely.
Right.
Yes.
So it sounds like it was more linear. Was that, so just to be clear, was that for your, what specific type of degree? Was that your master's?
There was a
Your
PhD.
PhD? Okay, that's your PhD there.
There was a
Okay.
PhD.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what is the research you're doing currently?
Yeah, we do a lot of, I like to call it, we do a lot of visual computing, a lot of pretty pictures of all the of all types. For instance, we have a lot of biomedical problems. My student Lorraine gave a presentation today where she's working right now on something called transcranial magnetic stimulation. And it's a hardware thing where you stimulate cells in your brain to feel better, essentially. It treats mental illnesses. And we're working in collaboration with Brigham and Women's Hospital, where we have a simulation of the exam. And my student Lorraine, she works on the visualization in real time of this data in 2D and 3D and augmented reality.
Okay.
So it pairs computer graphics with computer vision with human computer interaction, and it looks extremely pretty. It's we run aspects on the phone. We run stuff on the compute engines here at the Chimera cluster. And that's cool stuff. And other research I do is like breast cancer, a lot of breast cancer images. We try to improve breast cancer early detection. We got funding for that. And other stuff is, yeah, always somehow involves machine learning, understanding it better. We do some machine graphical perception studies where we look at how the new machine learning algorithms process very simple images and stuff like this. But anyways, pretty images, 2D, 3D, we do it all.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just mentioned machine learning, which I want to go off on that a little bit. So, where do you think it's going? Obviously, everyone, the consensus seems to be broadly that it's going to be significant. Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
But how broad do you think the application machine learning will be, especially with, ChatGPT and, things like DALL-E coming out?
Yeah, those are great algorithms, right? Like
Yeah.
they do fantastic stuff and they're very impressive and so on. However, what I'm missing is some semantic understanding of stuff like a human does. Like, so we're far away from like a level of intelligence where we would say like robots will be taking over the world, right? That's something which is probably not going to happen in the next 10 years, I
Yeah.
would say. And actually, even like just last year, somebody, and I would still agree with this sentence, some professor, I think from MIT, said like, we don't have anything yet that is close to an insect in terms of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So meaning like this system which works on its own, thinks on its own, or does on its own based on reactions to the environment, right? Even with ChatGPT and the new BART stuff, the it's fed off it's a huge mathematical model. That's what it is. There's something missing to call this intelligence in my eyes.
Right. So, I mean, that's the distinction between machine learning, which we have now, in artificial, like general artificial intelligence, or
Yeah.
right. So I think it was, who was it? I think it was John. You know who John Carmack is?
The
Graphics for Doom,
yeah.
Doom graphics guy, incredible engineer. He believed that, and he said this recently, was that it's probably the solution to artificial general intelligence is stuck in some paper from like 20 years ago. Another piece of it is stuck in a piece 10 years ago. Another piece is 5 years ago. It's all a back of the napkin solution, which I thought that was an interesting take on it. Because typically it's what it is that when you look at solutions, they're typically small, simple, and they don't have a lot of moving parts. Of course, you can over-engineer something and get something with a ton of moving parts and will do the thing. But most things are pretty simplistic.
Yeah, very similar. Somebody else from the godfathers of AI, I forgot the name, if it's Benjo or who said it, that we really are doing it so wrong with the deep learning. We should step back, and there should be a PhD student starting from scratch and applying what we know about the brain and studying like on a low level rather than doing these large millions of parameter models where we have hard times to understand what they're doing under the hood, right?
Right.
So starting from scratch is very simple stimuli. That would be the route to go.
I would agree with that. I think right now there's a massive distraction on, going where the growth is. Because there's an incredible amount of growth in, just your standard neural network. But there's got to be another approach to it that was going to be just as critical. And, once you start prodding places, you're going to find a weak spot and it's going to blow up like.
You know this guy, Gary Marcus?
Haven't heard of him.
He's always fighting with like Benjo and like the other godfather of AI. And he's not a computer scientist per se, but he follows this approach that there should be a fixed rules combined with deep learning together, like the symbols kind of architecture under the hood, rather than just modeling the cost function. So I think he's onto something, and it's very interesting to see how he justifies that based on also models of human perception. So that's a guy to follow, to look into. He's also very controversial. So when he fights on Twitter and stuff. So, but it's definitely interesting to follow his arguments that we need more in terms of fixed rules, have some boundaries for these models, not just let them play in the playground without any rules.
Right. Well, that's an interesting. I'll ask you after to get that name written down.
Yeah,
because that sounds like an interesting group to follow. Okay, just making my way through the questions.
But honestly, the first one was still the hardest for me. I don't know if my mouth is numb now, but like I feel
I'm feeling it with this one a little bit.
Which level are we on?
We just hit 6, so we have
We're halfway done.
we're halfway done.
Okay. Not bad, not bad. Good wins, then.
From personal experience, would you recommend seeking a master's degree?
I would say no.
No.
I would say
Well,
go
you got
for
you
a
here,
PhD.
so this is a
I would say go for the PhD. You can get the master's on the way and you get paid for it too. If you can, go for the PhD right away and get the master's on the way.
so you would say that the master's isn't even like
But like,
worth
you know,
it
I'm
for
coming
yourself.
from a research environment. Let's say it like this. I also did an internship at Apple for a while.
Yeah.
And nobody else had a PhD or was a PhD student. They said like at Silicon Valley, nothing more than a master's count. So forget about the PhD. So if you want to go on the industry track and also take a leadership role at Apple, for instance,
Right.
then you don't even need a master's. You can also do it with a bachelor's. Like all these vice presidents, Patrice Gauthier, he's one under Tim Cook. He has a bachelor. So
So you would, it sounds like it's down to the personal merit of the individual rather than their training.
yeah, I think if you want to stay in the research world, then you should go for a PhD. If you want to go to industry, maybe a master's, but bachelor is also fine. And then it's more about experience.
Right.
So the beauty about the PhD is that the master's is on the way and you don't need to pay for it. So it's a much longer time commitment, like 6 years, right? Getting very low pay for 6 years. So it's hard and you might want to give up and you're unlucky and stuff. But in general, I always suggest to people, why don't you do a PhD if they want to do a master's?
Right. So you think there's not really a point to it unless you're really going all the way. Like you can get by with just the undergrad.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. I like that take quite a bit. I'm trying to focus.
Especially if you want to stick to industry jobs. Then the undergraduate
Right.
bachelor's is pretty good. Yeah. And masters, if you want to go into research route, then you should go for the PhD. That's what it is.
Right. Okay. Let me see if I'm missing any questions.
But let me just rephrase that. I'm not saying that the master's is worthless, right? Not at all. But I think like the cost is too high. That's what I think. The cost is just too high. Why would you pay so much for a master's? Why don't you then go for a PhD, which is a master on the way, and it's free?
On that note, a good friend of mine gave me the argument that when it comes to computer science, if you're gonna go for anything post undergrad, especially if you're only going one level above to like a master's level, it makes more sense to go for a JD. Reason being is that the difference in pay and the cap in pay is higher if you actually go do patent law with a bachelor's degree in computer science than if you just get a master's of computer science. Because really, if you get a master's in computer science, it just pushes you forward a few years as far as the pay goes, but you're still probably, from what I've looked at, you're capped out of the same place. So if you don't think you want a PhD, but you want a higher education, get your JD. Go do patent law. There's a lot of money there.
What about the MD?
An MD? I mean, you could. I haven't seen anybody do that. I heard they actually do like it.
Yeah, the best combination is if you have a medical degree and no engineering or computer science.
I've
Yeah,
heard
those are
that.
unstoppable people. And then the best one are like MD PhDs, right? And they have programs like that. I applied to those programs many times, but never got in. But yeah, those are great opportunities.
So this is 7. So this is when I remember it started getting bad.
Oh,
Like now there's gonna be start being the difference. It's a slow up, but you should still be all right. This is where Dennis started sweating. The Duke could give a minute to kick in though.
all right, take it easy, slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you like computer science, you like computer since you work here.
Absolutely, yeah.
What were the experiences there that were kind of like, I love this, this is my thing?
And I still have the same experience. I think working with a computer, coding stuff is such a superpower, right? You tell the computer what to do, and you can even do it at scale in incredible dimensions. For instance, here on our cluster in Chimera, right? We have these 2 nodes, which each have 2 terabytes of RAM. Now think about that, 2 terabytes of RAM. That is just an unbelievable number. That's RAM, that's memory. It's not storage, it's 2 terabytes of RAM.
This is a good one. This is getting it up there. I'm starting to get a nose, little like sniffle out of this. That's good. Continue with saying no. Sorry to
I
interrupt.
said it's a superpower.
Yeah,
That's what
it
it
really is. I mean, I think one of the things I mean to computer science when I was like in middle school was compared to other fields of engineering, it's such a low barrier to entry. Where if you want to do electrical engineering, you need to buy a breadboard, you need to buy sensors, you need to do all this stuff. You need to look it up. You really need to do a lot of research to make sure you're not going to like electrocute yourself. But with computer science, it's you just need a laptop. So, and then you can download literally anything else. You can run with it and make something of immense value. So that's what got me into computer science. I'm sure, I don't know, everyone seems to have a different story. Right? So now we're getting up there. Ah, gotta reach that milk.
Oh, you're going for the milk already? Wow.
I've been sipping it a little bit. I'll keep it straight.
Oh. Yeah, what a great idea to do this.
Yes. So this came out of a conversation with well, so to get more activities for the club, I started just going around to different club websites. And one of the things I found, it was some college on the West Coast. I forget, I think it was it might have been Stanford. But what they do is they sit down with their professors and they have a beer with them. Now, I don't think that would fly here. I'm not going to try it yet. But then Aiden, a sophomore who's running a session or going to be in some of these sessions for the computer science club, he said he recommended we do it with Hot Wings. So I'm like, that's perfect. Because you get to interact with the professor, you get to know the professor better, and you get to kind of bring down the professor to the student level and really make that community interaction happen. And it's not alcoholic. But we might try to go for the alcoholic at some point. We'll see if they allow it. But that's kind of a stretch goal. I think this seems to be a good middle ground. So what was your first interaction with a computer? If you can recall it.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I had a computer very early, like starting with 8 or so.
Right.
It was a 286 machine. My dad is an engineer, so he had this computer. And not many people at this time had computers at home. So it was running Windows 2.0, I think. Yeah,
2.0.
2.0. And
was that even graphical?
Yeah, it was graphical, but like the most popular, like the first popular Windows was 3.1, I would say, or 3.11, the workgroup Windows.
What year was that? These are just
like
not to call you, that's it, like say you're old, but I'm trying to picture like a timeline.
Like 1992.
Okay, 92.
Maybe even before 1990. Think about that.
Got it.
1991. Yeah, I didn't code back then, but I used the computer. There were games like Prince of Persia, the first version, Commander Keen were some of my favorite games. And the Gorilla game was the first. You know the Gorilla game? It was written in QBasic, and this was without Windows. So you always had like the DOS, right? And then the computer starts in DOS, and then you type Win to start the graphical user interface. But you could also stick to just the terminal, and then you can use QBasic to write basic code in the terminal in this blue editor. And one of the examples that bundled with the DOS QBasic was this Gorilla game, where it's actually a 2-player game. You configure the angle and the speed of the banana, the velocity, and then try to hit the other gorilla. So, and then you had like these skyscrapers, and the bananas like make holes, and that's how you try to shoot up the other person, essentially.
Okay. I'm really focused on the heat. Wow.
So QBasic allowed you to code on DOS games like this, and I was fascinated by this. This was one of the first, and that's how I started coding in this QBasic environment.
Basic. Yeah. What was that? What was the paradigm compared to like what it is now, if you will? Because obviously now we have object-oriented. We have
there was like go-to, right? It was like you had a line
go-to statement,
and then go-to back to the first line. You know, the line, you number the line 10, 20, 30, and then you put like. In line 50, you go to 20, and then it would start back there. That's how you would code. There was no.
So it sounds correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds kind of like assembly, where you can just have a go-to.
Assembly is still like much more.
Really, there's a lower level of assembly.
And then no, higher level. Higher assembly is much lower, lower level, because you do like to program the registers and stuff, which is also a lot of fun and very rewarding. If you ever did like some microcontroller, like 8-bit programming in assembly. And you can also do it in C. Like there's some software called AVR Studio. That's really cool stuff. And I worked as a student with this professor who had these microcontrollers. So this was my first exposure to hardware close programming, where I like soldered the board and then programmed this controller with sensors, like a Raspberry Pi, but made our own Raspberry Pi, and then coded in assembly on this device. So that was pretty cool. cool stuff. And you had temperature sensors and stuff, could activate an electric magnet, stuff like that. We actually went to Georgia in Europe, which was that was the craziest university experience I ever had. A very poor country. They just came out of this war. That must have been like early 2006 or something.
Right.
I went there, and in this you were able to smoke. You had like the wires hanging out everywhere, and they had very little money. So we brought them some of these microcontrollers and taught some C coding with them. That was a really rewarding experience. Yeah. What was the question?
I forget, but I got another one now. What's been so as far as school projects, research projects, otherwise, what's been the hardest thing you worked on that you're like, I would not touch that again in a million years? And then what is your favorite thing? And that can be for any reason, whether it was like a great learning experience, you had a lot of fun, or if it was just simple or made you laugh kind of thing. So favorite versus hardest project.
Ooh, that's tough. The wing is spicy, man.
We gotta dig into it more. You're ahead of me.
So I enjoy anything visual, So when there's pretty pictures, computer graphics, CS4 you can take CS4 in the fall. Very hands-on JavaScript coding, easy API to do beautiful stuff very quickly, and the developer turnaround is very fast. So I love these kind of projects, very visual, very artistic too. Students like to add their own style to things, which is always beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
So I love these things. Now, in terms of research, the good news is once you decide to stick in research in your research field, you essentially don't do stuff which you don't really like anymore. Like, I mean, there's stuff to my work which is dreading and so on, but it all resolves around some images or visualization.
Right.
But like what I didn't enjoy doing in college and stuff was like theoretical computer science. Yeah.
That was just not it. You didn't like
No, I didn't like it. It was very hard.
Yeah. I'll agree with you on that note. It's definitely it's a lot of theoretical, very abstract stuff. You don't get to output it in a meaningful way that's like it's just not rewarding.
For some people it is, right? If you're like the math
you're right,
person,
yeah.
then they love it. Like Professor Tiago or Stephen.
Yeah.
Like they enjoy these things very much. It's very advanced.
Yeah, you need to have a very math structured mind for that. I don't think I have it, but I know some people that do. And it's like it's scary when someone can think like that. It's like, wow, I will never be comparable. Not that I'll ever be comparable to, but it's like if you want to figure something out, it's like that. It's impressive to watch.
Another example is this guy. That's my friend from the mathematics department, Professor David. Great guy, and he does medical imaging as well. So visual stuff. But if I look at his work, I don't understand it because it's like really the mathematical side of things, like modeling and like doing low-level stuff of the medical imaging. He doesn't look at the pretty pictures, maybe at the very end as a result, but not in between while he does his research. So it's very different than what I do. So yeah, the beauty is if you stick to research and become a faculty member, you can really work in the area you like. And we just submitted this grant, and it's a huge hassle. I worked all the weekends too, and a lot of writing. So it's a lot of work and demanding, but still I love it because it targets some project which is important for the world, essentially.
Right. Okay, next wing. This is what's the number on this box? I think this is 7. This is 7. So we had this is 9. So we have 2 more after this. It's 10 and 11. So we're really on the final stretch, and it should.
Okay. I think I'm doing all right.
All right, good. I'm doing good. The last one that had me the other night. I was like, yes, I finally got a spicy wing out of it. So I think next year we're gonna have to up the ante on this. Yeah. So I'm trying to get through the rest of the wings in that time. So God help me. What's one piece of advice you give to, generally to young people trying to get into computer science? And then what's one piece of advice you would have given yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the difference being is like one's more broad, the other's tailored to your own experience.
Okay. Yeah, the broad one So if you want to do computer science, all the resources are out there, right? You can learn so much from YouTube. And actually, my kids are 13 now, and they did during the pandemic. They did like a lot of scratch coding,
Yeah.
and this makes my mouth water. This one.
Yeah. We're
So,
getting there.
So they learned through YouTube. You know, I showed them. I gave them some challenges. I say you can make a program in Scratch which uses cloud variables, so you can have multiple connections to one product, multiple users, right? And then the variables are exchanged to the cloud. Scratch supports that, so you can do cool multi-user applications to that. And then I made this challenge for them. So the bottom line is, yeah, you can look all on YouTube. You find so many resources. Some of them are better than others, obviously. But yeah, everything is out there. You don't really need to buy a book or something, right? It's like accessible through the internet. That's very different than when I grew up. We were luckily also one of the, I'm very lucky that like we were one of the first households in Germany who had internet.
Really?
In the United States, it was already established with AOL at that time.
Right.
But in Germany, it was, we had the first modem we had was like 2,400 baud, which was like 2.4 kilobytes per second, right? So this was very slow, and it was a dial-up, and there was no browsers at first. It was like all BBSs. You connect to like these text-based systems, ASCII-based systems in a terminal to exchange files or information with other people before the web started. And yeah, so having the web, like the generations now growing up with the web, having this information at your fingertips at all times is incredible, right? You can really use that for your own power, but it also can be very overwhelming, and it's harder to find your niche in this.
Yeah. So that I've heard it said that it's like the kids growing up today are going to be so much more because they've had access to that kind of free information their entire lives. Like, I heard this guy from MIT talking. He was talking to some kids, and he was like, "Wow, you know this like really specific thing about science." I mean, it was fun. Like, it's probably like some pop science fact of like, "Oh, a black hole is a star," but that general baseline of information is so much higher because of the internet. So it really is amazing. I always tell my friends, like you were saying, it's like like you don't need to take a class in SQL or a database program to start it or to put it on your resume.
Right.
It's fully, you can just start
you can
now,
yeah.
and you can do it quickly, easily with just a Udemy course, or you can do it off YouTube videos. If you want a certification, you can do a Udemy course.
Yeah, I agree. Learning by doing is the best way of learning stuff.
Absolutely. Then there's no other way to do it. And that gives you a personal confidence too, because there's a difference between learning something yourself
Right. You just like
and taking it in from a class. If you learn it for yourself, you're going to learn probably how it works. It maybe you're more probably to know why it works. You do it for a class, you're just going to do it for a quiz, and then you pass that quiz, you forget about it.
Yeah.
One's a very hard learned experience, whilst the other is going to be, it's just going to be a class that you just forget about. There's nothing, this is another thing I've heard that I quite like is there's nothing people try to get less out of than education, because you sit there and you're sick of it the whole time.
So I didn't understand this one.
So there is nothing people pay more for and try to get less out of than education.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Which is like you're paying thousands of dollars, but you're not actively trying to, but there's certainly a force in your mind that's resistant to doing the work.
Yeah.
Because it's a chore at this point once you get to college.
Sure, you pay for it. Like what a bad deal, right?
Right.
So you have to do it. You pay for it. So that's why it's so much better if you like what you're doing, and if you learn hands-on skills. And that's why in the CS for 10 class, which is a capstone for undergraduates, we do like these hands-on projects, which the way we have like a very nice project partners, clients we call them.
Right.
Also some high profile like Brigham and Women's Hospital, Mass General Hospital, partnering up right now. Some startups, UPenn is part of it. Boston Children's Hospital, Swarthmore College, other like good institutions. Or like high profile institutions for your resume, and then you do hands-on stuff, and that's very beneficial. And often students, even when they're about to graduate, are less prepared to do these hands-on stuff because they have all the, like they went through all the courses and passed the exams and so on, and they consumed the knowledge, but the lack of hands-on skills is tremendous. So hands-on skills are just so much so important. That's why it's so good
Right.
that you do the lead code stuff. You
Right.
know, like the lead code stuff they use in interviews. My friend, actually, good friend, who I would even say like he's definitely smarter than me. He worked in he lives in Connecticut. He worked at this life sciences startup, and he was a Debian neural maintainer, which means like for Debian Linux, he makes these packages and stuff. So we're always very impressed by that. But he just got laid off out of nowhere, you know. So that's crazy. And I was like, yeah, join UMass Boston. You can get your PhD finally. He doesn't have a PhD. And he's like, well, I'm trying to get into machine learning a little bit. But yeah, that's so crazy. Now I forgot what I wanted to say. But yeah, that was a sad story. I was surprised, and he was so surprised to get laid off. Right now, it's bad. That's why grad school is actually a great opportunity to yeah, have some job security and get some new skills.
That's an interesting backup. It's like you get laid off, well, screw it, double down, get your you go for your graduate degree. I like that quite a bit. I might end up doing that. All right, so we still have 2 wings left. We have the 10 and this is actually, I say it's 11, but it's actually the last 2 mixed. So that's gonna be
What do you mean? The last
so if it comes from a pack of 12, it comes from a pack of 12. We can only get 23 wings for today.
Okay.
So those 2 are mixed with the highest 2 sauces. So
Does it add up like that?
the way we did it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think I've seen people peeping their heads in a little bit. So I think there's a class in here in a second.
What's the time?
It's like
Next class
11:50.
is 2:30.
2:30?
Yeah.
Oh, we're fine. All right. Well,
I think I'm just numb.
lucky you. Your numb or your palate's actually made for this.
I do like some spicy food.
Oh wow. I mean, but I don't know how you haven't. I haven't seen you pick up that glass once.
No, I did
Somebody
pick
has,
up.
but I haven't. Oh. Okay. Is there any questions you guys have for Haehn? Because I'm kind of out. How about you, Alberto?
So Google offers like different like free education stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's, like, different videos and stuff.
Right.
During break, like winter, I just was looking at the SQL stuff like that.
Yes,
And then
yes,
I actually learned a lot from that.
yes, yeah. I mean, those are top
website.
engineers, right? Google engineers are top engineers, so they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So these courses are great. There was also this thing in January. I don't know if it was this year, where Google invited UMass Boston students for some workshops on campus. And I had some, there was pre-pandemic, but people were like enjoying that so much. They joined the month of January there. I do feel it a lot. Like, but definitely like my saliva, so much saliva. But yeah, that's definitely Google resources are great. Yeah.
Even LinkedIn Learning.
LinkedIn Learning?
I never checked that out. I know UMass Boston has the partnership, but yeah,
it's free.
yeah.
We can do that. Yeah. I got that when I was working for Fidelity. I got it through them for a little bit. I didn't touch it.
That gives you like a certificate so you can show up on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
That's definitely good. You know, add as much as you can to your LinkedIn. LinkedIn is so important. Also, my student Yahir, ex-student who presented last week, his in CS for 10, his job hunt and what skills he took away. He said LinkedIn is really the platform to focus on.
Okay. It's 1:57. This has been great. Let's down the last one.
All right.
Oh, okay. I gotta do this again tomorrow. This is, I better be used to this, but
I'm definitely sweating on the nose.
no.
Oh, yeah, but it's not too bad. I like it.
I'm past the point of enjoyment with this. This is just,
really?
I'm committing to this now. This is where I'm at.
Like you do the visual class for like
The
computer
computer graphics, yeah.
I just sort of got so I was doing a bunch of graphics stuff. Sort of just got into looking more like the audio side of things. Do you think that people like don't look at audio enough? Because I was looking on like tutorials and it's like almost nothing on how to do audio. It's like,
Huh, interesting. Yeah, that's good stuff. Even so, I recently just read on the news that like music generation is the next thing, or like it's very hard right now. Compared to DALI and image generation, right? So these and then people always say it will be like a combination of artists and the algorithm and all. But yeah, that's very interesting stuff. But for CS for 60 for computer graphics, it would fit a lot. We do a lot of music, a lot of visual stuff, having some virtual robots dance to music and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty spicy.
Whew, I have a class I'm supposed to be in like less than 60 seconds. But to elaborate on that, one of the interesting things about DALI and GPT and music generation is that Microsoft has a stake in OpenAI, so they get access to the technology.
Uh-huh.
So they're planning to revamp Bing. One second. They're planning to revamp Bing to use GPT-3 and DALI. So what I'm predicting, I'm struggling. My bet is that instead of, so in the last, what is it, 30 years since Google came out, you kind of had this evolution of a search engine, right? And that's been the main way to get information. But I think in the next 20 years, you're going to see generation engines, right? So it's like Microsoft is going to integrate DALI, ChatGPT-3, and music generation on the same platform, which is going to be interesting to see how.
Probably, but yeah, probably soon. They're working on it right now, right?
I think next year again, I was actually, when I was first using the ChatGPT, I was using it a bunch as like
Yeah.
a search engine.
Uh-huh.
I want to do that. I wish, but it's been dumbed down.
It knows a lot about history, I realized. So
Okay.
you can ask it, like I was taking this history class, and to write a bunch of essays about, and like some of the prompts were like, you know, how was this battle lost?
Okay.
And so you can go to ChatGPT and say, like, explain to me what the tactics used in this battle were.
Okay.
And it, you know, it gives you a description.
Can you open
but it
it up?
gives you names to
Can you
people,
open it
like,
up?
this general-
I'm indisposed, bro.
Right, but then you look at
Oh,
Google,
yeah.
then it's like you affirm that the information is correct. But it was pretty interesting because like
You want me to pour you more?
No, I'm still good. Still good.
one of the things that would be really hard to find, you could find like relatively, you could get like almost leads on.
You pour it in there, Albert.
But some, also,
We
like,
have
what
7.
Oh,
Yeah.
implications on, like, the
People made it.
scene of this event. It'll tell you this guy was doing this, this guy was
Alberto,
doing this,
yourself.
this guy was
I gotta go to the discussion. It's already started. Can I just sprint the you here, man?
Okay.
I don't know, it's very interesting. You feel like an
I'm gonna give you.
Yeah, that's good. Like, and not just also just blindly trusting, right? You put
Yeah,
your
yeah.
additional steps in there to verify.
Trades. Yeah. Okay. So, just not to cut this off, I just want to do a general announcement. Thank you all for sitting through this. Please come to the club sessions. The regular session on Wednesday is going to be 2 to 3 in Uni Hall, room 2100, second floor, right off the stairs. Please come if you want resume roasts, workshops, and anything else. I'm gone. That's where I'm at.
Thank you very much for this. That was fun.
Thank you, sir. You've actually been like always, from that start, you've actually been really helpful with everything whenever I asked you to do something. So
thank you.
sincerely, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Because it was hard to find like the club advisor in the first place.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I
That's
wish
what
I
it's
would
about.
be more involved. And I'm hoping that I
Yeah.
can should be more in person.
right, it's honestly, it's just like, it's the scheduling. That's like a problem I gotta solve.
Yeah.
Because it's like you want to orient it around empty space in the schedule,
Right.
but then you need to survey everybody and well, it's a mess, but
How many people were online?
7.
7.
Yeah.
Good, good.
7. So that's actually, you know, when we've done the guest speakers with you and we've had Zoom there,
Yeah,
that's one of them we got then.
okay.
So recently, it's just people either didn't know where it was, couldn't come to this one. So I'm happy with
How
it.
many people come usually to those meetups?
That's the thing, is at the start, it's really strong.
Yeah.
But the retention's kind of shit.
Yeah.
So I've been, that's one of the rules.
I thank you guys
I
for
think if we're
coming.
running
and-
every other week, which is kind of boring. So
Unless you guys want to stay.
that's, if you look at